Let's talk some Garrett Crochet trades today, shall we? So as you can see here, we got 4 tiers. We got slam dunk, good shot, maybe, and nah. So I've already put a lot of teams into the nah tier because I just don't really see these teams being motivated to go after Garrett Crochet, but we got all these other teams to talk about. Let's get to it. And one thing to keep in mind before we get to those teams is the White Sox are going to be targeting position players in trades for Garrett Crochet. The White Sox already have good pitching in their organization, guys like Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, but they need impact bats, so keep that in mind as we talk about these teams today. Let's start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the D-backs already have a pretty good rotation as is. You got Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Erod, who they signed last offseason, Brandon Pfaadt, Ryan Nelson. Don't forget about Jordan Montgomery. Who knows what happens with him this offseason, but if the D-backs did want to make an upgrade to the rotation, you got a couple of position players here in the system, someone like Jordan Lawler, Drew Jones, but I just don't see the Diamondbacks really wanting to part with a young shortstop like Jordan Lawler, first round pick, a top 10 pick not too long ago. I think they have high hopes for Jordan Lawler. I just don't see the Diamondbacks really getting involved here. I'm going to include them in the nah tier. How about the Atlanta Braves? They had amazing starting pitching last year, led by a Cy Young caliber season from Chris Sale. You got Reynaldo Lopez, who had a great season with them. Spencer Schwellenbach really emerged into the second half. You got some depth guys like Griffin Canning and Ian Anderson. You got some young prospects like Hurston Waldrop, AJ Smith-Shawver. But the problem with the Braves is they don't have a lot of position player prospects to deal from. You got someone like a Nacho Alvarez Jr., but I see him being more of a floor guy. I don't see too much of a ceiling with him, so I don't see how you could center a package around him. I mean, maybe you could throw in a couple of pictures, maybe a young shortstop prospect like a Jose Perdomo. I just don't see the Braves having enough offensive prospects, impact bats to be able to include in a trade, so I'm also going to put them in the nah tier. How about the Baltimore Orioles? Now, the Orioles would love to have Corbin Burns back, but if he goes elsewhere, Crochet would be a great fallback option. You'd have Crochet, Eflin, G-Rod, Kyle Bradish coming back soon, Kramer, Suarez, Rogers for depth. He would be a great addition to this pitching staff. The only thing I wonder about is, do the Orioles match up well when it comes to a trade for Garrett Crochet? Now, let me explain. You got someone like Kobe Mayo, you got Sammy Basayo here. Now, when it comes to those two guys, they have a lot of value. I think they have more value than 2 years of Garrett Crochet. Could they sign him to an extension? Sure, but I think the Orioles highly value these two guys, so I would think they're probably not going to be involved in a deal. Now, could you center a package around Heston Kjerstad? Sure, but I think you would have to go out into free agency and go get a right fielder or bring back Anthony Santander, so I could see him possibly leading a package. Now, Enrique Bradfield Jr., he's your next center fielder after Cedric Mullins had a great year in the minor leagues this year, so I would imagine the Orioles would not want to give him up. You know, you got a couple of guys here like Dylan Beavers, maybe Jude Fabian. Let's say we just did Dylan Beavers. Now, the problem is you don't have a lot of other position players to include. You could include someone like Chase McDermott. He could be a solid pitcher for your rotation over the next several years. So I think if you had a package like this, Kjerstad, Beavers, McDermott, maybe throw in a lower level prospect, I could see them getting it done. But I just wonder, would the Orioles want to part with Heston Kjerstad right now? First round pick not too long ago. So I'll say right now the Orioles are in the maybe category. I could see them pulling off a deal, but I just wonder, if they have the flexibility to be good trade partners, and what is their motivation to give up some younger players like a Heston Kjerstad. If the Orioles do want to include Kobe Mayo or Sammy Basayo, then I definitely think they would go up to at least the good shot tier or even the slam dunk. Up next, let's talk about the Red Sox. Now, the Red Sox rotation was a huge question mark coming into the year, but new pitching coach Andrew Bailey helped get a lot out of these guys. A breakout year from Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford. They had some bright spots this year. They had some clunkers as well, but pretty solid overall. Richard Fitz had a good cup of coffee in September. Cooper Criswell was a solid spot starter for the most part. Now, Nick Pivetta, I see him going elsewhere this offseason. He's been solid for a while now. I think he's a good mid-rotation kind of a guy. I see him getting a multi-year deal this offseason. So the Red Sox rotation right now, I think, has a good floor, but I think they need more ceiling. I think Tanner Houck needs someone at the top of the rotation to go along with him. I think Garrett Crochet would be a great addition to this rotation. And over the last few years, the Red Sox have really revamped this farm system. They got some great position player prospects at the top here. Roman Anthony, the #1 prospect in all of baseball, according to Baseball America. Marcelo Meyer, also a top 10 prospect in Major League Baseball, and a shortstop, the highest value position in baseball. Christian Campbell exploded onto the scene this past year. Kind of reminds me of a bigger Mookie Betts. Kyle Teal, solid catching prospect, one of the best catching prospects in baseball. Catching prospects are very hard to come by. Now, you also got someone like Willie Abreu, has 5 more seasons of club control, coming off a very good rookie season. Good offensively. There is a bit of platoon risk there. Needs to improve against left-handed pitching, but very good against righties and good defense out there. I think Willie Abreu is a solid player. Now, taking a look at some of the values here. Now, Marcelo Meyer, I think, is probably too valuable in a trade like this for Garrett Crochet. Shortstops, again, it's the highest value position in the game. He's a top 10 prospect. There's a lot of upside with him. I just think he has too much value. Now, Christian Campbell has a lot of versatility, a good right-handed bat. I could see him being someone in a package for Crochet. I think the Red Sox would love to hang on to him because he is a right-handed bat, fits great at Fenway Park. They love versatility when it comes to the fielding. I think they would love to hang on to him. Now, Willie Abreu, I think, kills 2 birds with 1 stone because the Red Sox are trying to get rid of lefty bats, and Willie Abreu has good value here that can get a starting pitcher, which you need for the top of the rotations. If you did Willie Abreu, maybe you could do Franklin Arias, a good shortstop prospect as well. Not as good as Marcelo Meyer, but he had a good year in the minor leagues this year. Mikey Romero, he took a step forward, former first-round pick not too long ago, had a solid year in the minors. Blaze Jordan has a good amount of power upside there, so maybe you could do a package like this. But I wonder, when it comes to the competition from other teams making offers, I wonder if the Red Sox would have to up their offer to include someone like Christian Campbell, especially if you got teams like the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Mets making strong offers. I wonder if it would have to get to this point. Either way, though, the Red Sox have a lot of options here. They have good prospects, good young players, especially someone like Willie Abreu. I think the Red Sox are absolutely a slam dunk when it comes to getting a trade done for Garrett Crochet. How about the Chicago Cubs? I think the Cubs could be a bit of a dark horse here. They already have a pretty solid rotation in Imanaga, Steele, Tyone, Assad, and Brown, but adding Crochet here would really beef up the starting pitching, and the Cubs have a lot of position player prospects at the top of their farm that are very solid. Number 1 prospect, Matt Shaw. You got Owen Casey, you got Moises Ballesteros, you got James Triantos, Kevin Alcantara, Jefferson Rojas. I mean, they got a lot of guys that they could deal. You also have someone like Michael Busch, who has a lot of control left until free agency. He has 5 more years, so maybe you could do a deal with Michael Busch, and then maybe you could turn to free agency and go after someone like Pete Alonso or maybe a Christian Walker to take over at first base. And then, Matt Shaw, I don't know if they would want to trade him. I love Matt Shaw. I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't think the Cubs would want to give him up. Now, you got some other guys, like I mentioned, with Rojas, Casey, Ballesteros. So I think the Cubs, we haven't really seen them linked to the White Sox with Garrett Crochet, but I think if they wanted to put forth an effort, I think they could. But because we haven't really seen any connection between the two, I'll say maybe for right now. And I also just wonder, would the White Sox want Michael Busch? Would the Cubs even want to part with someone like Matt Shaw? I don't know. But I think the Cubs, if they really wanted to get a deal done, I think they could try. Moving on to the Houston Astros, and they got some solid pitching as well. You got Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown, Renel Blanco, Spencer Arrighetti, Luis Garcia. Eventually, you're going to get back Lance McCullers Jr., but maybe they want to beef up the rotation a little bit more. They got a few position players they could deal from. You got someone like Jacob Melton, you got Bryce Matthews, Luis Baez, Zach DeZenzo, but this is really the entire top of the farm of the Astros. They really need to replenish the farm over the next few years. I mean, if they did this kind of a trade, it would wipe out the top of their farm. I don't know if the Astros would really want to do this. On paper, it works, but I just don't see them giving up all of these guys for Garrett Crochet, so I'll say nah. How about the LA Dodgers? They were connected with Crochet at the trade deadline, but in the end, they didn't get a deal done. Now, they have a lot of starting pitching, especially with Ohtani coming back into the rotation. You got Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Gonsolin's going to be coming back. Bobby Miller, he had a terrible year this past year, but I would imagine they would like to get him back on track. Dustin May is going to be coming back. Emmett Sheen, you got Landon Knack. They got a lot of starting pitching here, but we know the Dodgers, they're always looking to get better, and they have a good farm. Now, at the trade deadline, the reason the deal didn't get done was because the White Sox wanted to get Dalton Rushing back in the trade, but the Dodgers did not want to part with him. Now, maybe things could change this time around, or if you didn't want to give up Dalton Rushing, maybe you could do a package around Josue DePaula, maybe throw in a couple of more prospects. I got someone like Kellen Lindsey, Kendall George here. So, yeah, the Dodgers, they absolutely can get a deal done if they want to. They have a lot of prospects they could choose from. Now, I just wonder, would the White Sox want Jose DePaula? Especially if they wanted Dalton Rushing. I mean, if you could have done Jose DePaula at the deadline, I feel like they could have done it if they wanted to. So for right now, I'm going to say they have a good shot at getting a deal done. It just comes down to, what's their position on Dalton Rushing now? Would the White Sox want Jose DePaula? Again, they got the prospects to get something done, but let's see if they could find the right package. How about the Mets? They had a great year. They're on the rise, and they're very motivated this offseason, and they could definitely use something in the rotation here. They're losing a few guys to free agency. Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana. Maybe they could bring one or two of those guys back, but I feel like they still need something at the top of the rotation to go alongside Kadai Senga. Now, with the Mets, they also have a few good prospects here at the top of the farm. You got Jet Williams, a good versatile player that I think is going to be a solid player down the road. Someone like Drew Gilbert had some injuries this year, but there's a lot of upside with him, a good all-around player. Ryan Clifford has a good power bat here. Even go down a little bit further. Someone like a Jesus Baez has a good amount of power in that bat, so maybe you could do a trade centered around Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford, include Jesus Baez, maybe another piece in here. I think the Mets could definitely get something done. I just wonder about the motivation when it comes to the Mets with dealing away prospects. They've really just gotten this farm back on track. Are they going to want to deal all these prospects away now? I think they would be more inclined to go out there and spend some money this offseason. But if they wanted to make a trade for Garrett Crochet, I definitely think they have a good shot at it. I wouldn't count the Mets out here. How about the Yankees? The number one concern this offseason is Juan Soto, but upgrading the rotation never hurts one bit. Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Crochet, I think that's pretty good if you ask me. And the Yankees got some pieces that they could include in a deal. Spencer Jones has a lot of power in the bat. Yeah, he strikes out a little bit, but there's a lot of potential in the bat. If he can just clean up the plate discipline, I think he could be a really solid hitter down the road. They got a couple other pieces here that you can include in a deal. Someone like George Lombard Jr., Roderick Arias here. Now, Jason Dominguez, I don't think the Yankees will be moving him at all. Why would you move the Martian at this point, especially if Juan Soto doesn't come back? I don't think they move him, but I think you could do a deal revolving around Spencer Jones. You could do either Roderick Arias, George Lombard, throw in a couple of other pieces there. I think the Yankees could get a deal done, and they were talking with the White Sox for Garrett Crochet at the deadline. Now, the question is, would the White Sox want Spencer Jones with the amount of strikeouts that he has? I'm not so sure. Again, there is a lot of power there, but there are concerns about the plate discipline. Either way, though, I think the Yankees have a good shot. How about the Phillies? They're looking to mix things up this offseason after falling short in the postseason yet again, and they got a great rotation already. Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez had a breakout year. Ranger Suarez had a good first half, faded in the second half, but we know that Ranger Suarez is pretty solid overall. Now, Taijuan Walker, and pretty much a bad contract at this point, but Garrett Crochet in this rotation would be nasty. You'd have Wheeler, Nola, Crochet, Sanchez, Suarez. Are you kidding me? What a rotation that would be. And the Phillies got some prospects here. You got Aiden Miller at the top. You got Justin Crawford. You got Caba. You got even someone like Dante Nori. You got Brian Rincon down here. Gabriel Rincones Jr. You have a lot of position players that you can deal from. And hey, Dave Dombrowski doesn't have the nickname Dealin' Dave for nothing. He likes to get aggressive out there in the trade market. I could definitely see him making a play here for Garrett Crochet. Now, if you did a deal revolving around, Aiden Miller, throw in a couple other pieces, I could definitely see that. Maybe you did a deal, with Caba, Crawford, Rincon. Even that could possibly get something done. I think the Phillies are a real threat for Garrett Crochet. I'll say they're a slam dunk, especially with the history of trades that Dave Dombrowski's made. And also, don't forget, Dave Dombrowski did trade for another White Sox lefty in Chris Sale. I'm just saying. Speaking of teams that get aggressive in the trade market, how about the Padres? AJ Preller has gotten a lot of trades done in the past. Why not here for Garrett Crochet? They could definitely use someone like him, especially since Joe Musgrove is going to be out for all of 2025 because he had to get Tommy John, and they were interested in Crochet before the deadline this past year, so I could definitely see something happening here. Now, the only problem is the Padres kind of run short when it comes to the position player prospects. Now, you got Leodelis DeVries, there's definitely a lot of upside with him, young shortstop prospect. I could definitely see him being a headliner here, but after that, you kind of start to run short. You got a Kavaris Tears here at number 6, but he's pretty far away at this point, along with DeVries. Also, don't forget about that. You got someone like a Cale Fountain who you just drafted. There's not really a whole lot to choose from. DeVries would definitely have to be the headliner in this deal. I just wonder what else you would put around him. Now, Preller, he's found ways to get deals done before. We'll see if they can maybe do something here, But for right now, I'll go with the Padres as a maybe because they just lack that depth with the position player prospects. How about the San Francisco Giants? Who knows if Blake Snell comes back? He's a free agent. He could definitely go elsewhere. If he doesn't come back, then Garrett Crochet could be a good replacement. You'd have Logan Webb, Garrett Crochet, Robbie Ray, Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks here, Landon Roop. That's not bad if you ask me. Now, the only problem I see here is, do they have enough high value position player prospects that they would be willing to deal? Now, Bryce Eldridge definitely has a lot of value. He's been hitting very well in the minor leagues. I don't know if the Giants would want to give him up, though. There's a lot of potential in the bat with him. You got a couple other guys here, maybe someone like a Walker Martin. You got someone like a Rainer Arias. There's a lot of upside with him. But I think if they're not willing to make Bryce Eldridge the centerpiece of a deal, I just don't see this happening. I just don't think they have enough depth to get a deal done. So I'll say nah. How about the Blue Jays? They're looking to make some upgrades this offseason, and they're looking to add to the rotation. If you had a rotation of Kevin Gausman, Garrett Crochet, Jose Barrios, that's a very solid 1 through 3, along with a few other guys here like Chris Bassett, Bowden Francis, Yariel Rodriguez. That would be very good starting pitching. Now, the only problem I have with the Blue Jays is they don't have a lot of high-impact position players they can deal. Now, Aurelvis Martinez, there's definitely a lot of upside with him, but he just got suspended this past year for testing positive for PEDs, so I don't really know how much value he has at this point. You got someone like an Arjun Namala, who was a first-round pick not too long ago. You got a couple other guys here. I don't know if the Blue Jays really are going to be strong in the trade market. I think their strength is free agency. They got money they're willing to spend. They're going to be going after Juan Soto. So for the Blue Jays, I don't think they have the pieces to really get it done. I'm going to go nah. But everyone, those are my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on my tiers here. Let me know everything down below in the comments. Where do you think Garrett Crochet ends up getting traded to? Let me know down below. But everyone, that's all I got for this video. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.